Today I'm going to show you how to submit a transaction from start to finish. This video focuses on how to upload a transaction as if you're representing a buyer. But if you have a listing, or if your transaction is a lease or referral, it's pretty much the same process. Just be sure to choose the appropriate selections for the type of transaction you're adding. I'll also cover various ways to upload your paperwork, including a method you may not be aware of, and I'll go over some tips and tricks that should make this a simple process for you. I've even added timestamps so you can jump to any section you need. Now let's begin. First, let's click on the Transact button, and from there you'll click on the plus button to add a transaction. On this page, you'll see the different categories of transactions. Residential will be the most common. It includes single family, of course, but also condos, residential lots, and even farm and ranch. Other categories include apartments, commercial, and referral. Let's select residential. Once you've selected residential, you'll be asked what type of transaction it is. Select lease or lease listing if it's a lease, otherwise select sale or sale listing. Here, we're going to select sale. Now that you've selected the category and sale type, you need to select what phase you're in. Select Start or Showing if you have just started working with the buyer. It's a good practice to upload your IABS and buyer's rep to the system for safekeeping. But most often, you'll select Contract, meaning the contract has been accepted by the seller and it's executed and at the title company. Go ahead and select Contract even if you're still negotiating repairs or in the option period. Pre-closing should be selected if you need to get your transaction submitted ASAP, because the title company needs your CDA. Don't wait to the last minute. The title company needs your CDA in advance so they can do their job and calculate the numbers correctly. Choose post-closing if the transaction has already closed. Be aware that you won't be eligible to receive table funding if it's already closed. Here, let's go ahead and select Contract. Now we need to select which party we represent. Select the seller if it's your listing and you have a listing agreement. Select seller and buyer if you are an intermediary. Don't select it if one of the parties is unrepresented. Choose buyer if you're the buyer's agent. In this example, we'll choose buyer. Now we have to add the client. Click Select Client, and if you've previously worked with them before, they might already be in the system and you can select them that way. Otherwise, we'll just add their information now. If your client doesn't have an email address, you can select No email address available, then click Add New Client. Now you can select Create New Transaction. This is the summary page. From here, you'll add the property details, people, and documents related to your transaction. Let's start by adding the property. Click on the blank picture to the left of your buyer's name, then click Set Property. Now you can choose between Search MLS or Add Basic. If the property is still in one of the active statuses in the MLS, you can pull it up this way and add a nice picture to your transaction. If you waited too long and the property has changed to pending in the MLS, our system won't be able to find it and you'll have to add it manually. In this example, let's go ahead and add it manually. Click Add Basic and then just fill out the information for your property. And don't forget to include the sale price. When you're done, click Set Property Now. Now that you've set your property, we can work our way through the other tabs. Let's start with the People tab. From here, you'll need to add the seller, the seller's agent, the loan officer, and the title agent. The title agent is especially important because we need that info in order to send your CDA. Let's add the seller. Now, let's add the seller's agent. The system might require you to add the industry for this type of contact. Just select Real Estate Brokerage. And there you go. Now let's add the loan officer and title agent. This will be easy if you use our Ready partners. If you type in their name often, you can see that they're already in the system. There may be multiples, so make sure their contact info is still correct and up to date. You can choose them, and then click Select Contact. Now let's look at the Details tab. A lot of agents like to skip over this part and go straight to the Documents tab, but the system is built so that if you add your information in the Details tab, the system will actually generate which documents are needed in the Documents tab. But okay, we'll go ahead and take a peek at the Documents tab. You'll see only 5 documents are required now. Based on the basic information the system has, you'll need the IABS, the buyer's rep, a compensation agreement. We'll go over what to do if you don't have one a bit later, and you'll also need the residential contract and the seller's disclosure. Now let's go back to the Details tab. Here you'll see several lists of questions, and it might seem overwhelming at first, but they're very easy to answer and they'll make sure you're knowledgeable about the deal you're putting together. I'll skip around to show you what I mean. If you edit what is the ownership status of the property, and if you select Builder New Construction, you'll now see in the Documents tab that the seller's disclosure is no longer required. And that's because they're not required for new builds. Let's go back to the Details tab and let's change the ownership status to conventional or resale. And now let's also edit it to reflect that the property is in an HOA. Let's go back to the Documents tab again and you'll see that the seller's disclosure is required once more, and now you'll also need the HOA addendum. Can you see how if you use the Details tab first, it will really help keep you on track of knowing which documents will be required for your transaction? You can see how easy it is to point and click on the answers, so I'll finish the rest of those details off camera so we can move on to adding our paperwork. Looking through this section, you'll see that some documents are required now. Some are recommended and some are required later. It's a good practice to add even recommended documents just so you have as complete a transaction as possible. You probably also spotted that the third-party financing addendum is now required, and that's because in the Details tab, I selected that my buyer was getting financing. There are a few ways to add documents. We'll start with the simplest. Next to the document you want to add, click on Options and then Attach Document. From here, you'll be able to select a file from the inbox. I'll go over that in just a sec. Or upload a file from your computer. Select Upload Now. Click Upload. Now, select the file and navigate on your computer to where the document is located. Select the document and you'll be taken to this interface. This is where you'll connect your documents to your transaction. You can see a preview of your document if you click on it, and you can look in the preview panel to the right. To add it to the document, click Add Page and then click Create Document. From here, you can see that we've selected one page for the document, and because we clicked next to the HOA addendum in our previous list of documents, the title has already been added for us. You have a couple of options here, but it's always best to add to the file the signed and executed document. However, if you have something that's incomplete, you could go ahead and upload it. Just know that you'll need to swap it out for the signed document before you submit it. You can also make notes about the document. Click Save Document and Quit, and you'll see that your document has been added to your transaction. Another way to add documents is by using the inbox associated with your account on the dashboard. It's like an email address, but only for sending and receiving documents. Here's how to set it up. On the left-hand slide-out menu, select Inbox. This is your inbox. There's nothing on file in this one yet. Let's go ahead and set up our address. Click Setup, then choose a name to create your custom address. You'll need to make sure the name you've chosen is available, then click Save Custom Address. Now you'll be able to use this custom address to send documents to your inbox on the dashboard. Go to your zip forms, and within a transaction in your zip forms in the Documents tab, if you have any signed and completed documents that are PDFs, you'll be able to send them from right there. You can't send a raw zip form. It has to be a PDF or the system won't accept it. Click More Actions, then click Send, then Email. Your custom address won't be in the system, so we can go ahead and X out of this, and just go ahead and add it manually. Once it's in, you can add a subject if you like. Then click Send. It will ask you to select the provider to send the documents. Let's just go ahead and use zip forms itself. And that's it. The message has been successfully sent. Let's give it a few minutes and then go back to our inbox on the dashboard. Okay, we're back at the dashboard. Let's go to our inbox, and we get there by using the slide-out menu on the left. Click Inbox, and there's the document that we sent to ourselves. Okay, so all you need to do is click Attach, and then select which transaction the document will attach to. From here, you can add it page by selecting Add a Page, or choose Select All, and then all of the pages will float up to the top so you can see all of the pages in your document. You can also reorder them if you ever need to if you have a document that comes in out of order for some reason. Click Create Document, and now we'll have to choose which document this is. In this case, it's the seller's disclosure signed by all parties. We've selected 6 pages and selected the title. It's fully signed, and we have no notes to add, so we'll click Save Document and quit. Now, I'll show you another way to attach a document. Previously, we clicked by the document name under Options and attached the document that way, and we also attached it from our inbox. This time, let's go to Attach File. I've sent another file to myself using the custom address. So I'm going to click View Received, which will let us select a file from the inbox, and it'll load into our familiar interface. Now I'm going to show you how to separate documents that may have come in lumped together, but they should be 2 or more separate documents. For instance, you can see this file contains the information about brokerage services, but it also has the buyer's rep agreement. Let's just upload the information about brokerage services for now. We'll click Add a Page since we only want this first page. Then we'll go ahead and click Create Document. From the list, select Information about brokerage services. By the way, can you see how the required documents are highlighted in yellow? It makes them easier to find. You could also use the search bar to find a document. We'll select Information about brokerage services. It shows we've selected 1 page. We've selected the correct title for the document. It's signed, so now let's save and add another. We're back at the Add a Document interface, and you can see that the system shows you if you've already used up a page. That way, you won't duplicate it. Let's go ahead and add the pages for our buyer's rep agreement. Click Create Document, select Buyer's Rep, Save Document, and quit. As you can see, both documents are now on file and in the correct spot. Here's what to do if you need to request an exemption from providing a certain document. For example, say your transaction is just for land. In that case, you can request an exemption from providing a seller's disclosure. Or perhaps you've used paragraph 12 in the contract instead of a compensation agreement. Next to Required Now, click Options, then click Request Exemption, provide your reason for the exemption. Then click Request Exemption again. Now you'll see that it says Exempt. I'll quickly upload the rest of the paperwork so we can get on to the good stuff, submitting your transaction to get a commission disbursement authorization, also known as a CDA. Oops, I forgot. One last thing I wanted to quickly show you was how to add a document that doesn't have a name for it. So let's go ahead and upload it from our computer. I'm adding an email that I've saved between me and my client because I want to keep track of that conversation. If you know, you know. Once it's uploaded, let's select All, and then Create Document. All right, so there's no specific title for what we just uploaded, so what you can do is scroll to the bottom of collateral. It's considered collateral because it's not part of the contract. Click Other Collateral, and now you can just rename it whatever you like. So I'll rename it. Let's just call it Email between me and client, and then I'm going to save the document and quit. And that's how you add a document that doesn't have a specific name. You don't need the closing statement from title in order to submit the transaction. It's required later. You can and should add it right after closing. So now we're ready to submit the transaction, but it seems we can't. The Submit button won't let us click it. It's grayed out. The reason for that is that the transaction is still in the contract phase, so we need to move it to the pre-closing phase. Here, it's easier to see from the Summary tab. Start, Showing, Contract. We selected Contract when we first started. So now we need to select Pre-Closing because we're ready to submit. A lot of agents aren't aware you can actually click the buttons on the status bar to change the transaction phase from closing to pre-closing. Let's see what happens when we click on Pre-Closing. Uh-oh, the Submit button is still grayed out. But fortunately, the system lets you know what you're missing by highlighting the sections with missing items with an orange icon. Looks like we're missing 4 items in the Details section. So let's go to the Details tab. Remember when we started our transaction, we put it in the contract phase and we never entered an actual closing date? We only entered the closing date that was on the contract. So now we need to add when the actual closing is being held. Often, it's the same date that's on the contract. Hopefully, you're submitting your transaction a few days ahead of time and not at the last minute. Go ahead and click Closing Date, select the date from the calendar, and click Save. Then answer the few housekeeping questions. Just a reminder, if you selected a closing date that is after the closing date on the contract, the system will then require an amendment to extend the closing date in the document section. If you have a 1 to 4 family contract, you can go ahead and add the amendment. If you have a builder contract, you can use the request exemption option. Okay, so our submit button is still grayed out. It's a weird quirk of the system, but you have to navigate off this section once you're finished. Go ahead and just click on any other tab. We'll click on Summary, and you'll finally see the button turned red so that you can click it and submit. Let's click on the red Submit button, and then we'll click on the Create Request button. This will take us to where we can create our funding request, which then becomes our CDA. In the top section, you'll notice that the title company information is already filled in. On the right-hand side, you'll see a column that has a summary of your transaction details. Note the sales price. If it's changed from when you originally wrote the contract, you may need to go back to the Details tab and update the price, then come back to finish this section. Add the commission that you'll be receiving. Just click on the little calculator and the system will calculate it for you, no math needed. If you're getting a flat fee, don't use the calculator, just enter it in the first form field. But in this case, we're getting 3%, so we'll enter that and click Update. You can use this drop-down menu called Add an Income if you're lucky enough to be getting a bonus. You can add the amount of the bonus here. Sometimes, when you're working with a new home builder, they have incentives and bonuses, which is nice. Or maybe you're charging your buyer a transaction fee. In that case, select transaction fee, then add the amount. Make sure that you've selected the correct party who's paying the fee. In this example, we don't have any additional income besides the commission, so we'll leave it with just the sale commission charged to the seller. This next part shows where the money goes, and you'll see that most of it goes to you. If the sales price is less than $600,000, you should see a $350 transaction fee here. One major exception is if you're a brand new agent, and this is your first transaction, you'll see a 60-40 split instead. Remember, the first sale and first lease for newly licensed agents are on a 60-40 split, with 60% going to the new agent. That's so we can pay the training associate for their help and mentoring. One other thing to be aware of is that our commission schedule for high-value properties over $600,000 is different, but unfortunately the system doesn't auto-calculate it, so we'll adjust it after you submit. Or, if you want to add it yourself, the commission schedule can be found on the dashboard, left slide-out menu, shared docs, then policies and procedures. The other thing you can do in this section is use the Add a Payout drop-down menu. For instance, if you're contributing to your buyer's closing costs, you can select Contribution to Buyer and enter that amount here. Or if you're paying a referral to an agent at a different brokerage, you can select External Referral, put the amount you owe, and then add that agent's brokerage in the Pay To line. Remember, per Trek rules, we have to pay the brokerage, not the agent. That brokerage will then pay their agent. If you're paying a referral, make sure you also add the referring brokerage's W-9 to your documents. In this example, we're not making any additional payments, so we'll move on. Use the comment section if you have any special instructions for the title officer. Many agents add their wiring information or they write out the address they want their check sent to. If you don't include that information here, you'll need to provide it to the title officer separately. Leave table funding checked if you want to get paid directly by the title company. Standard funding is used mostly for leases, but occasionally you'll run into a builder who won't allow table funding and they'll pay all the commission directly to the brokerage. In that case, standard funding should be checked and we'll pay you once we receive the funds. Now let's click on the button for Create Funding Request, and you might think that you're done, but you're not. There's still one more step to do. You have to click the Continue to Submit button, and finally, you'll need to click the Submit Transaction button. Whew, that's a lot of clicking at the end. When you've completed all the steps, you'll see that our once read Submit button now says In Review. Once it says In Review, that means that you've successfully submitted your transaction, and the system will automatically send the office manager a notification letting her know there's a transaction to review and a CDA to be sent. If you don't see In Review, that means you've missed a step and you need to complete the process. It's always a good idea to text the office manager once you submit a transaction, just so nothing falls through the cracks. Congratulations on your closing.